in a nutshell, in the first 24 hours, we saw the big five. Like
Wow.
we had already knocked out all of the big five. So a couple incredible experiences, though. I'll share three if I have time for that. One was our first game drive. The animal that was a big surprise that doesn't live on the reserve and they only see 2 to 3 times a year is the African wild dog, also known as the painted dog.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's live episode of the DCL Duo podcast, brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And I still got to give a quick shout out to our good friends over at the DCL magazine. If you have not already checked them out, they put out a really high quality magazine, digital and print, like not month to month. Not every magazine is month to month, but they cover Disney Cruise Line. The WDW magazine is the broader umbrella for them. They've got the DLR magazine. High quality photos, high quality articles, just great stuff over there. If you have not already checked them out, head over to dcl-magazine.com. That's dcl-magazine.com today. And if you use code DCLDuo all caps, that's code DCLDuo all caps, you can get 10% off everything in their store over there. So yes, please.
And Brian has been a contributor to every edition thus far. So
I don't need the accolades. I don't accept their sponsorship because they let me write for them. I think it's a really great product.
It is a great product, but it also is a great product because they get great contributors like host and producer of the DCL Duo, Brian Flock. All right. I just want to put that out there.
I don't know if it's that great, but if you like the article, it's fantastic. There's plenty of other writers there too who are doing some fantastic stuff. So head over there, show them some love. Remember, showing our sponsors some love is showing the show some love. And so just head over there, check them out. And speaking of show sponsors, I got to bring in our fabulous sponsor. There she is. Hey, Karen, welcome.
Welcome back,
Hello,
Karen.
everyone.
It's
good
so
to see you
lovely
guys.
Yeah, so lovely to see you tonight. We've got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking with June in a little bit about Adventures by Disney. But before that, we wanted to check in on some Disney Cruise news. And there's a bunch of different announcements that happened this week. Some were unofficial announcements, some were official announcements. But I'm going to run through them real quick and then get reactions from Brian and Karen. So first of all, alcohol policy change. This is a big one. So the alcohol policy of what you can bring on board both at the beginning of your cruise and during your cruise has changed. So it used to be you could bring on 2 bottles of wine per adult over the age of typically 21, but in some places over the age of 18, like in Singapore, over the age of 18, you bring 2 bottles of wine or 6 bottles of beer. Now they have changed that policy. Now it is only 1 bottle of wine or 6 bottles of beer, so per adult. And you cannot bring on alcohol in between. Well, you can buy alcohol off the ship, but if you bring it on, whether it's wine, beer, whatever, they're going to basically check it for you and hold it till the end of the cruise. That's always been the policy with regard to hard liquor and any amount of alcohol over the limit, but it used to be that you could bring bottles with you each, you could bring 2 new bottles each
and
time.
And reduce the corkage fee in the restaurants. If you didn't say
yes,
that.
they did reduce the corkage fee. It used to be $29 a bottle. Now it's $20 a bottle. That's not, that's maybe a bonus, but now you only get 1 bottle. So it's you're only going to get it once. Another policy change, selfie sticks. They used to have a policy that said you couldn't bring selfie sticks that were over a certain length or any kind of stick for a camera over a certain length. They have changed that policy. Now they're allowed on board. If you keep them folded and under 18 inches in public areas, you're okay. In your own stateroom, you can have them in sort of larger or extended version, or you can keep them stored in your room so they won't take them at security like they used to. Another policy change, door decorations. They have never really been very clear about limitations on door decorations, except for the fact that they need to be magnetic, not sticky, right? You don't use tape and you don't have like wires that plug in and things like that. Well, now they're saying not only you have those rules, but it has to be confined to your actual door. So you're not allowed to put stuff on the walls next to your door. A lot of people, this got a little bit out of control. I know a lot of people really like to decorate with magnets, but it was kind of going all the way, down the halls, and people were hanging all sorts of things. And I think was just kind of causing a little bit of a hazard. And so they wanted to rein that in. The next two announcements are only specific to the Disney Adventure. So if you're sailing anywhere else on any other ship with Disney Cruise Line, not a big deal. But if you're sailing on the Disney Adventure, these will apply to you. The two changes are: kids now ages 10 and older are allowed to dine in Palo. They are the same cost as adults, and it's the same menu as adults, but 10 and up, you can bring your kids to Palo. And then the other change is a $5 service charge is being charged on room service on the Disney Adventure, plus the 18% automatic gratuity on top of that. So if you're ordering room service on the Disney Adventure, you're going to pay a fee. On all of the other ships, you will not pay a fee. You're just expected to tip whatever a reasonable amount is. These are big changes. I'm not super surprised by the ones on the Disney Adventure, because from what we've heard, people are tending to do the included options and ordering kind of excessively with room service. And so they're kind of Disney Cruise Lines being eaten out of house and home on the Disney Adventure. And so I think they're trying to mitigate that with putting these fees and allowing kids to go to Palo to kind of help compensate for their food issues that they're having. But I'm curious, Karen, what do you think about the changes in general? I think the alcohol, the door decorations, let's talk about the ones that are more specific to the sailings out of the US.
I agree with a lot of the comments that I've been seeing and that I see tonight, that it just feels kind of petty to me. I really wonder who within Disney revenue sat down and crunched these numbers to, result in this policy. We're going to lower the corkage fee, but we're going to limit the number of bottles. It just doesn't feel like the ease that Disney Cruise Line has been known for. And I just don't get it. I don't know if at some point they're going to think that they're going to start experimenting with beverage packages. I've seen some speculation about that, but I don't know. Is this going to change people's loyalty to Disney Cruise Line? I don't think it's going to make a big difference in the big picture, but it just doesn't. It feels kind of silly to me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Brian?
I echo everything Karen just said. I mean, the things that stood out to me the most, they changed it to 1 bottle of wine, but they left it at a 6-pack of beers. So I don't understand how they arrived at this conclusion. I desperately hope that the Palo change does not come to the rest of the U.S. fleet. I think adult dining on the U.S. fleet is really sacrosanct, and I think that would be a big mistake for them. The service charge on room service on the Adventure, I hope that doesn't deploy fleet-wide. I think it has more to do with the market the ship is sailing in and sort of the tipping culture that may happen over there or not. Selfie sticks or whatever. Whatever. I'd prefer not to have these massive 360 camera selfie sticks out everywhere, but they haven't bothered me. So I don't mind. Now, giving permission to people may make them think about, let me grab the selfie stick, which
maybe
I think
bolder.
that'd be annoying. Yeah. I do think the door decorating was getting a bit out of hand on board some of these ships. So and actually no place more apparent apparently than the Adventure from what we
really cool stuff, but really a little bit out of hand.
I always thought it was it was cool to walk down the hallway and see doors. It got a little bit annoying when it was what's taking up walls and ceiling space and stuff like that. That I think this was a welcome sort of change from my perspective. But yeah, the alcohol policy feels like a pure cash grab at some level. And it's the kind of nickel and diming almost that we sort of, look down upon on the other cruise lines for doing and say Disney doesn't do. And so, I fundamentally don't understand that. And I desperately, Karen, to your point about the drink package, please, Disney, we don't need drink packages on Disney Cruise Line. Look at what it's led to on other cruise lines, over service problems. There's been all kinds of weird conduct on board from people who've been overserved, people who've gone overboard who we think have been overserved. It's supposed to be a family-friendly environment. So I honestly think that if Disney Cruise Line introduced some sort of a beverage package, it would be so restrictive that it wouldn't really make sense. And I just say institute the beverage package. The drink pricing on board is not terrible. It's not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, so all right. Well, that's the end of the news segment. I wanna throw this over to Karen because we invited her on today. Karen has a ton of experience with Adventures by Disney bookings. Like her agency, My Path Unwinding Travel, books just a ton more at Disney Adventures by Disney adventures than many agencies out there do. So they have a ton of experience,
including our own in July.
Yeah, including our own in July coming up in just a couple of weeks, right? So they have a ton of experience with Adventures by Disney and with some of their competitors. And so we asked Karen to come on and chat a little bit about how one might choose a guided tour like Adventures by Disney.
And I appreciate it because Adventures by Disney is really one of my most favorite topics. You know, it's probably one of the things that got me into this industry 11 plus years ago. I took my first Adventures by Disney 12 or 13 years ago before I had even an idea of becoming a travel advisor or starting My Path Unwinding. So, and since then I've taken 7 Adventures by Disney. And so, you know, the one question is always, do I want to be on a guided vacation? And, you know, for people that are really into cruising and Disney Cruise Line, sometimes it feels like a big adjustment because they're used to the ship, they're used to choosing their own excursions, and they have a vision of kind of that bus tour that your grandparents went on, or that maybe you did when you were like in high school. And so it's understanding that these type of guided vacation experiences have changed so much. And there's now something really for almost everyone. And so if you are a Disney fan, the Adventures by Disney experience is such a great segue into what Disney has called seeing the magic in the real world. And I love that, right? So it's like really immersing yourself in still the storytelling, the history, the culture, the food, the entertainment, the Disney movie tie-ins, all of those great things that Adventures by Disney can offer. And you're doing it with like-minded people. And the vast majority of people that are on board with you, whether it be an Adventures by Disney river cruise or a guided land vacation, have a Disney affinity. Sometimes we get people who have never heard of Adventures by Disney to try it out. But mostly it's because they have some sort of Disney affinity. And it's also because people want to travel together with their families and to do something that feels secure and comfortable in a new destination. So I think that's just a great opportunity to have that, a little bit of that Disney bubble and the Disney level of service that you really don't find in too many places. And all that being said, it's kind of like, okay, well, could I plan this trip myself? And I mean, the answer is yes. And we at My Path Unwinding, we do plan customized itineraries for people that don't want to be on a group vacation. They don't, you know, they just want to do something that's very unique to them. And we can do that too. But as we say a lot of times, the VIP access, the behind the scenes, the Disney name opens doors that we can't do a lot of times for you, except unless, you know, without a very high premium. Let's put it that way. Much higher premium than just paying for the ABD premium. But there's other options to discuss. And the big one that I've come on and talked to you about is Tauk. And Tauk has been around over 100 years. They celebrated their 100th anniversary last year. They are a guided vacation, river cruise, small ship company. They have Tauk Bridges, which is their family-friendly itinerary. So I know today your guest is going to be talking about South Africa and the Adventures by Disney South Africa tour. And that is an incredible itinerary. But Africa is an entire continent and there's more to see. And Adventures by Disney will take you to South Africa or to Egypt, but they won't, for example, take you to Tanzania, which is where Talc Bridges goes on a grand family safari. So Talc Bridges has some key differences than Adventures by Disney, but in general, it is a very high quality product. The hotels that Talc stays at across the globe tend to be a notch higher than most Adventures by Disney experiences. The food, I think for the most part, the general consensus is that the food options may be a tad better than Adventures by Disney. And so it's something to look at side by side. If you're looking at, let's say, a Japan itinerary or a Canadian Rockies, wherever it is that you're looking at, a Danube River cruise, to look at it side by side. And then I want to talk about one more thing, and that is Rome by Talc, ROAM. They picked a great name when you're looking at it, but when you say it out loud, you have to spell it. Rome by Talc is kind of like those of us that want to do an Adventures by Disney adult exclusive should think about Rome by Talc, because Rome by Talc is a brand new product designed for those in their 40s and 50s-ish. I would say ish. It's 21 and up. You have to be at least 21 to go, whereas ABD is 18 and up for their adult exclusives. And it is a, what do they call it? More flexible, really small group experience. So they average 16 on their land tours. They're, sometimes they call it half on, half off. So you have kind of a guide, but you have a lot of built-in time to just do things more lightly guided or on your own or independently. And so when you're talking about South Africa today, you can compare the Rome by Talc South Africa itinerary, which also goes to Mozambique, and so has that city experience in Cape Town, the penguins, the hiking, the safari experience on the game preserve, and then takes you to this incredible, like, beach destination that just blows my mind. So there's all these options to consider, and, you know, I'm just beginning to scratch the surface.
Yeah. Well,
I'll pause now because I can keep going.
Wait. I got to share one comment from the chat, Karen, which is coming from Ashley. Karen's passion for ABD is directly related to our ABD to South Africa this summer. So there you go. Like, if you need an expert on ABD.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
I love it. I do want to just share real quickly that we at My Path Unwinding are leading a group departure on the Douro River in Portugal with Rome by Talc in late October 2027. So
cool.
Reach out to me if that is something that is interesting to you. A great way to experience Talc, Rome by Talc, Portugal, meet me and Kaylee and several others of us. So yes, we're really excited about it.
Love it. Love it.
Nice.
Listen, for those interested in learning more about whether it's Adventures by Disney, Talc, Rome by Talc, or some other guided tour, or perhaps you want a custom tour, please reach out to Karen at our show sponsor at mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo or DCL Duo at mypathunwinding.com. Those are the easiest ways to get in touch and let Karen know that you have, heard about her through our show and that you're interested in hearing more about one of these amazing vacations. Of course, you can always just book another Disney cruise with them as well. So, yeah, Karen, thank you so much for joining us. We will say farewell for this evening, but we just so appreciate you and all of your support and, of course, your expertise on all things Adventures by Disney.
Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to the rest of the show. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thanks. All right, we're going to bring June on now. There we go. Hey, June.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent.
Great.
How are you?
We are so excited to have you back. For those who don't remember, we had June on just earlier this year at the very beginning of the year to talk about her sailing in New Zealand on the Wonder Down Under. And June was sweet enough to bring me back a New Zealand Disney Cruise Line shirt. And I'm so excited to have you back on the show, June. We're going to talk about your South Africa adventures by Disney. I know you have one prior adventure that you did. Why don't you tell folks what sort of brought you to Adventures by Disney? And did you start there or did you start with Disney Cruise Line?
Oh, well, definitely started with Disney Cruise Line. Started with Disney Parks, then Disney Cruise Line. We did our first Adventures by Disney a few years ago when we went to the Galapagos Islands on an expedition, which has now been handed off to Nat Geo with all the other expeditions. But that was amazing. That was a dream, bucket list trip and was our first introduction to Adventures by Disney. And we were spoiled, very spoiled since then, and even more so after South Africa.
I love it. Now, it's just you and your daughter, teenage daughter, sailing. I'm saying sailing because I talk in cruise talk, but traveling to South Africa for this Adventures by Disney. Tell us, why did you choose this adventure in particular? Like, did you consider booking with somebody else? Did you consider doing it on your own? Did you consider a different destination?
I mean, South Africa has been a bucket list trip, for as long as I can remember. So we're sort of checking off these bucket lists, and also want to hit all the continents. I had not been to Africa before now. And we really only considered Adventures by Disney. I have heard great things about Talk and others, but we really wanted to do another Adventures by Disney. The itinerary was great. I mean, the things I'd heard on the Galapagos trip from other travelers was many people said that Africa was their favorite ABD. I mean, I've heard a lot of different favorite ABDs, but
Sure.
that was up there for sure. So it was that, that really got it on our radar, and we started trying to figure out when we could do it. So
yeah. I love that you go for like the farthest one. You go for the continent you haven't been to yet. Speaking of, though, traveling to the continent of Africa, there's some preparation you have to do when you're traveling to Africa that you don't have to do when you're traveling other places in the world. Namely, there's a bunch of shots you've got to do, right? Like, tell us what that preparation looks like, and are there any like visas or things like that you also have to plan?
Yes. So we didn't need a visa for South Africa, but we also went to Zimbabwe on our own after, and we needed a visa for there. And we had a 10-hour layover in London, and we needed a visa for there now, which is a new process. I almost didn't realize that one. So yes, we needed just a visa for Zimbabwe, but not for South Africa. We did get shots, hepatitis A, I think, one of the hepatitises, and also typhoid. Yeah, hepatitis and typhoid. And we took malaria meds.
Yeah. Now, the malaria meds are pills, if I'm correct on that?
The malaria meds are pills, and you really only need them for certain regions, and it's more, depending on the time of year you're going, where there's a higher propensity for mosquitoes. So we took them only when we were in the very north part of South Africa, and really more for our Zimbabwe part of our trip, where we were going to Victoria Falls, where it was more wet than even the South Africa part of the trip. Again, it could be based upon the time of the year, and you have to talk with a travel health advisor on, exactly where you're going, when you're going, what's the situation at that point in time, and what's recommended. So, for us, we started the malaria meds during the trip, like 2 days before we went to that region. And then we took them while we were in region, and then you have to take them for 7 days after you leave the region.
So stepping back for a second, June, describe for us the itinerary for this trip. So you obviously fly from the U.S. to South Africa, and then sort of what's the, we've only experienced the river cruise version of these. So like, the hotel moves with us, but on the other ABDs, right, you got to move from place to place. So like what just kind of give us the overview of the itinerary that you had.
Yeah. So you meet in Cape Town and you spend your first few nights in Cape Town. The first day that you arrive, you just get, meet you get met at the airport, you get transferred to the hotel, you sign in and meet your guides, and you go to bed. And then the next morning we had an orientation after breakfast where we got to meet all of the fellow travelers, and they do some icebreakers and talk about, what you're going to do and how everything's going to work for your 8 days together. And then we started touring that day. So you spend the first 3 days in Cape Town before you move on. So from there, we went through the wine region, a town called Stellenbosch, and the wine region. And then we went on to an area called Knysna near George. And for that part, you fly from Cape Town to George. And then Knysna is kind of a vacation spot for South Africans. So it's on the coast, but it's also lots of woods, mountains, hiking, just beautiful, landscape. We stayed at a nature retreat there. It was beautiful. And then from George, you fly again up to Kapama near Kruger National Park, which is the safari part of the trip. And then we had 3 days up there at Kapama. And then the last day, the tour has another flight to take people back to Johannesburg, and they say goodbye in Johannesburg. We skipped that flight and instead went straight to Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe.
Yeah. So you basically have like 3 different hotel spots, or is it 4 different hotel spots that you sort of are going from?
Yeah, it's 3. So it's Cape Town. You're in the Radisson waterfront the whole time in Cape Town. And then we were at the this Pazula nature retreat in Knysna, which is a beautiful, beautiful resort. You're in basically, it's almost like a condo that you have to yourself there, like a huge wood burning fireplace. They put, it was fall when we were there. So at the nature retreat, the rooms aren't technically heated, though they have like rolling heaters. You can move around the room, and they put hot water bottles in your bed for you at night as part of the turn down service. And then there's a wood burning fireplace, and they provide all the supplies to build a fire. But it was as big as a condo, like this, the 1 bedroom room that we had. So that was beautiful. And then Kapama, which is just like, Kapama is fairly new. It's been open, I don't know, less than 10 years. I was asking some of the staff there but the building we stayed in had just opened in November, and enormous room and bathroom, and with one side of the whole room was solid glass, floor to ceiling, looking out into the bush. And the only place I've ever stayed that was on par with that was the Four Seasons private island in Maldives.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking super fancy.
Actually, Sam, let me ask you. Let me just get to. There's a couple of like good pre-trip logistics questions that I want to make sure we get to up front. So, someone was asking about your flight. So, did you go to Heathrow then direct to Cape Town?
That's what we did. Okay. There's several ways to get there. From the East Coast, I know a lot of people flew through Atlanta. There's a direct from Atlanta to Cape Town.
That's got to be a long
Obviously,
flight.
From the West Coast, there's other options. We live in an American hub. My miles are all American. So we flew to London, had a long layover, like a 10-hour layover in London, spent time in Windsor, came back to the airport, and then a 12-hour flight to Cape Town.
Okay. And then I know
big time adjustment.
Yeah, Ashley was asking about packing logistics. And as you were talking about hot water bottles in your bed, I was thinking, I don't think of, I conceptually should understand South Africa's far enough south in the continent that, of course, it's going to have cold and warm. But how did you think about packing for this trip? Did you feel like you got good guidance out of ABD over what to pack? And was it hard to pack for this?
Well, we always carry on, so that's always a challenge. I never trust the airlines with my bags, especially on the outbound, maybe on the home if I've bought too much stuff, which was the case this time. But we have to be very strategic. And I did laundry at every place that we stopped. So I think that's my advice, is take advantage of that, because you're staying multiple nights at each hotel. You have enough time to get laundry done. So we did that along the way. So I had plenty of clothes. I really probably brought a little bit more than I needed. It was cooler than I even anticipated, but they gave us good guidance on that. They said it's going to be chilly in the mornings, and on the game drives in the mornings and nighttime when it was cold, they also gave us hot water bottles and blankets for the game drive, which I have this whole new appreciation of hot water bottles. I never realized how, they're not the rubber things that I used as a kid for a stomach ache or whatever. These things, like were cozy and warm. They were wonderful. So, and helped us eat a long time. But so they took over good care of us, but you definitely need, for us, it was early fall. So it got relatively warm during the day, 70s up to 80s up in the north. But it got very chilly across the board at night. So you needed a lot of layers.
And
it's like California weather, really cold in the morning and then gets really hot at the height of the sun in the afternoon.
How should folks think about, ABD typically publishes some guidance over ages and activity level and things like that. Did you find that mostly accurate? Like how active was this adventure? And, did you see anybody on the tour who was, struggling a little bit, or did you have any advice around activity level and those sorts of issues?
Yeah, nobody was struggling. The oldest person on the tour turned 80 on the trip. Wow. And the youngest was my daughter, who's 19. It was adults only. And it wasn't super active. We did a little bit of hiking. We did a lot of walking, but mostly on, kind of more flat ground or slight incline. Not, if there was something that was very hilly, there was typically an option where you could ride in a vehicle or have some other means to get to where you were going. There even was the option on the safari that one couple had the situation, if you had like back problems or something that would hinder you from riding in like a rough terrain and a lot of like really bumpy, situation, which is how it is out when you're driving. Like we were off-roading sometimes out in the bush and stuff. So one couple opted to have a special vehicle that they rode in that wasn't as bumpy, and they stayed on the smoother roads.
Yeah. Now, how big was your group, and how many adventure guides did you have with you? Now, we know you have local guides as well, but how many adventure guides for the group of travelers you're with?
Yes. So our group was 34 people. There were two Disney guides. One is from the US and one is from South Africa originally. And then the only other guides we had were really like on the safari, like the guides that took us out on the safaris. And then there might be people who were giving us lectures or tours or during each location that we went to. But we were primarily with those two guides. And within the group of 34. As I mentioned, my daughter was the youngest, 80 was the oldest. There was 71% female in our.
Oh, wow.
There were 5 mother-daughter pairs.
Love that.
And yeah, they were mostly like the daughters were 20 to 30s, like 20s and 30s, and then with their mother. There were 2 women that were there together, 1 female solo traveler. The rest were married couples, mostly around retirement age.
Yeah. Now, I want to let folks know who are listening, we are going to be speaking with Ashley later this summer, who is traveling on the same South Africa ABD with one exception, in that she's going on the family version of this same thing and with a kiddo. So, and her daughter's a year or 2 younger than Nathan. And so we will get that perspective later this summer in August from Ashley.
And Ashley's heavy in the chat right now, getting all the downloads from June. So
yeah, she and June are friends, but she's getting the download
anytime. Walk away from me. So
yeah.
Hey June, there is a question in the chat which I think I know the answer. Someone's asking. You mentioned you were able to do laundry at each site. I'm assuming that's sending the laundry out. You weren't trying to do it the old school way in the bathroom in the sink, right? So Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
There weren't any self-serve machines. Like I have other times when I've traveled, found hotels that had, self-service. This wasn't. You had to pay, but the prices were reasonable, and they usually had an overnight or turnaround. So it was very convenient.
And I've got to ask a comedic question from the chat. CT wants to know if there's any chocolate souffle available on your Adventures by Disney. I'm going to say, CT, I'm guessing the answer was no.
We actually didn't see any chocolate souffle, but the big thing in South Africa is this dessert called malva pudding. It's basically their version of sticky toffee pudding, the British dessert. But every single place we ate had a version of malva pudding, and that they wanted to serve to us. So it's like kind of a running joke of like people say I can't eat any more malva pudding. I happen to love it, so I was pretty happy and just taste testing it from everywhere. But lots of malva pudding.
I love that. Well, you gotta figure out which one's the best one, right? Of all the things.
So I was going to say, Sam, we probably don't have time to go day by day.
I want to ask. Yeah. Yes, I want to start with the highlights from. Let's do like the legs of the trip, okay? So because I want to save like the more of the time to talk about the safari, because obviously that's the thing that most people think about when they think about going to Africa. But tell us like highlights from Cape Town.
Yep. So highlights from Cape Town would be District 6 tour, which is how we learned about apartheid, the apartheid history of Cape Town, and what happened there as far as people being pushed out of what was called District 6 into territories outside the city, and how that disrupted families. And then we went to a museum on that. I got a lecture, lots of great education around that topic. And Table Mountain. So I think most people, if they're familiar with Cape Town, you've heard of Table Mountain. It's this high, flat, mountain, obviously made from volcanic, earthquake movement. And we were supposed to go. The itinerary says we were going to go on the first day, but this is a good example of Disney pivot. So the weather was not good. You need a clear day to be able to see anything from the top of Table Mountain, and so they rearranged things. So we went 2 days later and had incredible views at the top of Table Mountain. And then another Cape Town highlight would be Boulder Beach. So Boulder Beach is down at the Cape of Good Hope, and that's where you see the penguins in South Africa, which is
I have great pictures of the penguins. I absolutely loved that. One of the things that you get with a company like Adventures by Disney and other similar companies is you don't have to do any of the planning, and you don't have to do any of the arrangements or the logistics. So one of the things, like you mentioned, that they pivoted because of weather, like they're behind the scenes taking care of all of that, and you're just like, they're just telling you like where to show up for breakfast and when. Now I do want to ask, like, were all of your meals included? I know for Adventures by Disney, usually most of, maybe not all of your meals are included, but I'm curious on this adventure, was everything sort of, because you're, kind of with the group probably the majority of the time?
Most of the meals were. We did have a couple free evenings where we were on our own. I think like one night dinner on our own, and there might have been a lunch in there somewhere, but it was mostly with the group for sure. And in Cape Town on our first night, we had an incredible meal where there was a lot of entertainment, drumming. We drummed, we watched drumming and singing, and, like a whole family style, tasting of all different, South African foods. And that was really incredible too.
Yeah, awesome. How was the food experience overall? Like, did you feel like it was accessible to, let's say, the American palate? I know that obviously yours was an adult-only one, so it might be a little bit less chicken nugget focused than maybe the family version. And I'm not saying I'll be curious to talk to Ashley after she goes to find out about that. But yeah, how did you find the food in terms of accessibility?
Very accessible and a large variety. When we first arrived, they did ask us to pick some of our meals up front for certain days, which I actually appreciated because it made things move faster when you're trying to serve 34 people at one time, taking orders and just even taking orders and asking 34 people what they want to eat, and them asking you 100 questions about every dish would waste a lot of time. So that was a very efficient way. Now, when we got to a lot of these restaurants, there was some flexibility too. They would say, we got your order, but we are going to go ahead and put in the appetizers, and you get a chance to change your entree if you want. Like, they did that on a couple occasions, which was nice. But it definitely made things more efficient, and there was a wide variety.
Awesome. All right. Well, jumping ahead, you had the sort of the nature preserve was kind of that second leg of the trip. What were the highlights from that?
Yes. So in that part of the trip, so on the way there, we stopped, we went to a couple different wineries. So we went to one when we were still in Cape Town, and then one kind of on the way to travel to George. So those were lovely. And then we went to a monkey reserve and a bird sanctuary, and also a nature reserve called Featherbed, but it's not a bird sanctuary. It was just a beautiful mountainous place along the coast where we did like hiking and saw all the views of the ocean, and had a beautiful buffet lunch there on that property as well. The monkey reserve was really funny because they have something like 600 monkeys in this place, in lemurs, and when you walk in, and they tell you ahead of time, like, be careful of your cell phone, your glasses, don't have any food, because these monkeys, are not shy and they will try to take things. So we walk in, and immediately, you're surrounded by monkeys and lemurs, like, everywhere. And my daughter was a little ahead. She's probably the most timid. Like, I think she was singled out by the monkeys because she's like just knew, like, she was easy target. So she's a little bit ahead of me, and I'm not watching her. I'm talking to other people, and I hear her screaming bloody murder. And this little gray fervent monkey climbed up the leg of her jeans to try to get her water bottle from her pocket, and she was terrified and screaming, and then all the monkeys started screaming back at her.
Oh my god! Oh, I'll be honest, that would kind of terrify me. Oh my god!
She was a little traumatized. And it was really funny.
Monkey attack. Oh my god. That's crazy. 600. That I can't even imagine. June, you got to see like all of the animals. I know we haven't gotten there yet, but spoiler alert, June got to see all of the big five on safari as well. All right, what about in George? What were some highlights from that leg?
Yeah, so that was actually the Knysna. So you fly into George, and then you go and stay at the Pazula Nature Retreat, and go to the Featherbed Nature Preserve, and that's part of that's when we were like the bird sanctuary, and the monkey stuff is all in that George area.
All in that, okay. And then you fly again to where you're going on safari, basically.
Yes.
The fanciest hotel you said you've stayed at, other than the Maldives, Four Seasons. Yeah. Yes. Now, what do the days look like for the safari part of the trip? Like, how early or how late, or like, do you have breaks in the middle of the day? Because I know you're on these, like you said, off-roading kind of Jeep vehicles for periods of time.
Yeah. And I think everybody, thinks about the safari when they think about this trip, and that's valid, because we were enjoying it all, but they leave that the best for last, right? That's the crescendo, at the end, because it is incredible when you have a travel day to get there, and you arrive in the mid-afternoon. The drive, they pick you up in the safari Jeeps at the airports that close. The airport by Kruger National Park, which we were on a private game reserve near Kruger National Park. And so the guides drove us in the Jeep. So even on the way in, you kind of start seeing some animals on your way into game preserve. And the game preserve it has a fence around the game preserve, but some animals can get beyond the fence. Like I'll talk about that when we talk about some of the things we saw. We had a treat of something very rare that does not live on the game reserve that came in while we were there. And then there's another fence around the resort. So like an electrified fence. So like the big animals can't get into the resort area, though in the resort area, we did, there were wandering impala and monkeys and, small animals that you would see within the grounds of the resort.
Yeah, so you just don't want to get like trampled by an elephant or attacked by like a lion, right? So yeah.
I'm just curious, Jude, for the safari aspect of it, as I think about packing and all that sort of stuff. Like a lot of people are going to drag a bunch of camera gear with them, but before they do that, did ABD or the safari folks, like I'm curious, did they give you binoculars? Were they taking photos and stuff that they would then share with you at the end?
They gave us a ton of photos. Yeah. Yes, they had incredible photos that they share with you. And they did this on the Galapagos trip. They have a slideshow they do the last night of like all the, like highlights of pictures of everybody. And they send that out to you as well. But they share, and then they also encouraged and arranged for all of the guests to have a photo stream that we shared together, all of our photos. And there was one person who had like a mega camera, and she was taking like the professional shots. But I mean, I just used my iPhone and got great shots. My daughter had a nicer digital camera, but so there was a lot of small digital cameras and phones. And like I said, really just one person who had that mega camera, but the guides took amazing pictures. They're really talented at that.
Yeah. We have one kind of general question in the chat I wanted to go ahead and get answered, which is someone's asking about currency. I'm going to up level it here for a second and say, like, what was the money situation like? And so did you need local currency a lot of the time?
Yeah. So the local currency is Rand, and I did use a lot of local currency for tipping primarily. It is a tipping culture. Not every place is, but I did do a lot of tipping, small amounts. Like I got a lot of 50 Rand bills, and that's equivalent to like $3, and that's what I used primarily for tipping if somebody handled my bag or showed me to my room or whatever.
So
did you get that currency like through your bank at home, or what was sort of
airport ATMs? So
very smart.
So every time I was at one of the airports when we were moving, I would get more Rand from an ATM at the airport.
What was the highlight from the safari for you? Let's go back there. Like what was the animal you didn't expect to see that you got to see?
She has to tell us all of the animals, Brian.
Okay. All the animals. What was the highlight?
Tell the story of each of the animals.
In a nutshell, in the first 24 hours, we saw the big five. We had already knocked out all of the big five. So a couple incredible experiences, though. I'll share three if I have time for that. One was our first game drive. The animal that was a big surprise that doesn't live on the reserve and they only see 2 to 3 times a year is the African wild dog, also known as the painted dogs. They're the most endangered predator on the planet. And on our first game drive, our first evening, we saw a pack of 20. So we were out on our drive, and the guides are talking to each other all the time and sharing if they've spotted something. So our guide had heard that they had spotted these wild dogs, but the dogs had gone into the bush. They weren't, near the dirt roads where we were driving. So you can't see them once they go back into the bush. We could hear them, because really we could hear the antelope that they were killing. So we heard this antelope crying.
The pack of dogs was like eating or attacking and then eating an antelope.
And then we heard bones crunching, and we're sitting there in our Jeeps just waiting if they're going to see if they would come out our direction. They could go any direction. This is like a huge area with like windy little paths everywhere. So they could go any way. But all of a sudden, all 20 come running out of the bush towards us. And behind them comes 3 hyenas who had overpowered them and stolen the antelope. And one of them was carrying the head of the antelope around as a trophy in its mouth.
Holy cow. That must have been so incredible. I mean, it's kind of gory, right? But that must be so incredible to like witness in person. That's like what we watch National Geographic to see, right? Like
Exactly.
that's
Well,
so
that's what
cool.
they said. They said people from Nat Geo come here for a week and they never see that. Like they come here because hoping to see that, and they don't
Right.
get to see that.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's crazy. What about one of the other ones that you?
So then the next night, our second night, we were on the hunt to see cats. We wanted to see the big cats. And so we heard that somebody had spotted a leopard, and this guide who had spotted, I don't even know how they knew to track the leopard down in this area, because you're kind of off-roading, like you're on a dirt road, but it's one that's not, it hasn't been used much, it's overgrown, and it kind of went down this ravine that was like a dry creek bed, and we went down in that ravine, and I didn't even think these Jeeps are amazing, like what they can drive over. Like I had they are amazing, like what they can get on angles and they could go over little trees. They're crazy. But we go down to this ravine, and I didn't think we could go down. I thought we were going to have to go back the way we came in, because the other side looked even worse. I didn't think it was passable to go up. We see the leopard, just the tail end of the leopard. We got it on video, like in the dark, going into the woods. But then behind us was another Jeep that was following us in, because they were trying to see two that were part of, our group. And behind them was a large male bull elephant who decided to knock down a tree over the path behind that Jeep and blocked the road. So we couldn't go back the way we came. And so we had to go forward up the other way. And we were totally off-roading. Like they were just creating paths to get out of that area back to the main dirt roads for us to get out.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. Like, were you at any point during like you're seeing like a leopard, right? Like that thing could like run and pounce on you. Like, what are the warnings that the guide?
So when you stay in the vehicle, you look like one entity. All the people in the vehicle, they just see it as one thing. Supposedly,
so it's too big for them to attack.
Yeah. I made eye contact with some animals that I feel like saw me. Like, I don't know. So, but that was the theory, right? So, and later that night we saw a male lion, and he walked, right by me on my side of the Jeep. And I was using my phone, and I had my hand kind of out the side of the Jeep. And then I realized he was so close I could have touched him. So I like pulled my hand back, and I like realized like I can't be dangling like my hand over the side of the Jeep while this male
your
lion
hand is an appetizer.
Yeah. But you feel that comfortable because you're getting so close to them. I had to kind of check myself on that. And then the last amazing story I want to share is a leopard again. The next morning we were out, and we spotted a female leopard who was out hunting, and they said she had cubs that you could tell that she was nursing, and so she was out on the hunt, and we saw her go into the bush hunting, and then we saw her come back carrying a full-size hare. It's like feet were barely touching the ground, and she's just carrying this dead hare by the nape of her neck, and waltzing off to her cubs with the
bringing
breakfast.
it back for everybody to eat. Wow.
I feel like a South Africa ABD is a lesson in the circle of life. So,
It just teaches you like how small we really are, right? Like it's that kind of, that's incredible, June. I want to wait one second, Brian, and then I'm going to let you ask a question. I want to put a comment out there right now. If you are interested in seeing some of these pictures and videos that June is talking about, she has a great Instagram and blog called The Vacation Mouse, and it's _vacation_mouse on Instagram. And you can also link to her blog from there. But it's like the reels that she made and the pictures she has from the safari stuff. I mean, other ones are great too, but these ones are like just incredible. I shared some of them in our stories over the last 24 hours leading up to the show. But go look at her stuff because it's just incredible. Sorry, Brian, I know you wanted to ask a question there.
Now I'm curious because Ashley's posted in the chat, how is the baby elephant story not one of the top three? So now, what is the baby elephant
story?
Yes, we saw a lot of babies. I mean, babies every baby giraffe, baby rhinos, the baby elephant. Though there was a couple. So the first morning. So we arrived in the evening, and the next morning, one of the first things we saw was this whole herd of elephant, and I love elephant. And there were a couple of young elephants, and then a 2-month-old baby elephant. And this is one of the cases where I think that the elephants knew we were people and they could see us. I mean, I'm convinced. So, because when the baby elephant would get out in front of the bigger elephants, a big elephant would always come in between the baby elephant and us and just put themselves, in the way. And then at one point, this really big elephant, the biggest, most mature elephant, which I think was the baby's dad, he came right over to my side of the Jeep, to block the view to the baby. And not only to block the view, and there's a little bit of video of this on there. I had a lot more footage than I put in the reel, but he did this whole performance. So they were all dusting themselves with dirt. And you see some of them are rolling on the ground. Some of them are tossing it with their trunks. But he was being especially elaborate in like how he was picking up the dirt and how he was tossing it. If you watch it, like he puts his trunk down and he pushes dirt with his foot onto his trunk. And he was doing this really elaborate toss, and I felt so much like he was entertaining us purposely to distract us from that baby elephant.
That is so brilliant.
Exactly what he was doing. Just like the one who pushed the tree over the road right behind that Jeep that went in. Like he knew what he was doing, like they're just so highly intelligent that I definitely think they knew each one of us.
Wow.
So the last leg of the trip here, June, after the safari is sort of this like what you described as like a vacation area. Is this meant to be like a time to just relax, or did they have like a bunch of places to go visit in this area as well?
Oh, at where we did the game drive. So at Kapama Game Reserve where we stayed. So we did a drive in the morning and we did a drive in the evening, and then you would have free time in the middle. And there were some activities like there was there's a picture in the advertising of me holding a snake, a python, which was part of, we had like a reptile experience, and they did archery one day. So you had some little things you could do, but they also asked us a few days ahead who wanted to book spa appointments. And then they took all of our requests for spa appointments and booked all of our spa appointments for us so that would work around the schedule. So we had that. And you had like a window for lunch that you could show up within a couple hours to get your lunch. So there was free time in the middle of the day, which was really nice. Like at that point, you're tired and you're getting up, early and for the drives and things. So it was a nice break. And the resort was so beautiful. You wanted that time. Like there was 2 pools, and I did yoga. I had a private yoga class one day and one other person in class with me another day. And so that was really nice for me. So it's a lovely, lovely resort.
So let me ask this question, June, because a lot of people look at the price tag for an ABD and they're like, after they stop hyperventilating, like,
after they stop
I
choking.
can't possibly do it. But like, you've experienced it, we've experienced it. And like, I think there's actually real value here.
I think there is too.
But one question we'll get consistently asked is, so what was included and what wasn't, right? And so we know that these land-based ABDs don't necessarily include like every meal during the day, include a majority, right? But in between your flights, the transfers, there were no admission fees getting charged, I assume. Your spa treatments obviously you probably paid for on your own. But like, what was included here, and what did you end up having to like pay for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, everything was included except for, I guess, the night we arrived, there wasn't any formal dinner. So the night we landed, we were on our own for dinner. One other night in Cape Town, we were on our own for dinner. And then there might have been a lunch, like a shopping time. I can't even tell you when it was, but at most there was maybe one other time. The rest of it, breakfast, lunch, dinner was, all included. They fed us constantly too, as ABD does. Sometimes alcohol was included. Sometimes it was an additional charge. It depended. A lot of times it would be included with your dinner, but there was a couple of cases where the alcohol was additional on your own. The tips, you have to tip your guides, and I tipped, other people as we went along. The spa, we chose to do that. That was out of pocket. but I absolutely do believe that there's value, and it's a big sticker price. We did use another tour company for Japan, just because the Japan ABD didn't fit our schedule, like the time of year, the dates that we needed to go, and but it was probably half the price. But if you can manage it, I'd much prefer to pay the money and have the type of experience we had. They take care of everything. I mean, it is the private access, right? Disney gets the best private access, the best front of the line access, the best service from the providers because they know it's Disney and they want to keep their business. The rates, I mean, even like Kapama where we stayed, you can go stay there by yourself. And that is, for the most part, I wouldn't feel comfortable maybe planning a trip around South Africa and seeing all the things we saw. But I could see flying just to Kruger National Park and staying at a place like Kapama on our own. But that's still on your own. It's a minimum of $1,500 a night as an individual. So if you looked at, I don't think Disney paid that, for the block of rooms that they got. And then we had a lot of private dinners. We had, I don't want to spoil any surprises for the guests, but there were several surprise events, and some of the meals and venues that are, just beautiful and private for us, entertainment that was private for us, and some other surprises that were unique to us, that you absolutely, would not have access to if you weren't traveling with Disney.
Well, let me ask one more question here, and then I'm going to let Sam kind of, she's probably got a bunch of stuff swirling in her head. But the other question I feel like we get asked a lot, or that people kind of jokingly say is, Mickey and Minnie riding around. No, Mickey and Minnie are not out on the, the safari with you, setting aside the danger that would pose. But did you feel at any point during the trip, did the Disney magic, however you want to say it, like I'll give the example when we did the river cruise, right? We had this like underground lake tour and a salt mine that I won't get into, but like our guide was sitting in the back of the boat as we were, and he was, dead men tell no it was a little bit of Disney for an audience of Disney fans. And like, did you have any of those kinds of moments on this, or
a little bit. Like this is another thing that they did really well. When we were on buses or traveling anywhere, they were entertaining us constantly. Like you were never left to sit alone in silence or be on your phone. Like you were they were actively entertaining you on every bus ride. So there would be like a little bit of Disney joke or something, woven in on those rides. And then the pins. So the pins that they gave us every day, obviously Disney pins. But what was so amazing with that is the creative ways that they would reveal the pins. They didn't just hand out pins. There would always be a surprise and again, I'm not going to spoil anything for any future guests, but there were some really creative ways that they revealed the pins every day. So that alone was some Disney magic.
All right. We got to ask Karen's question in the chat. Did they show the Lion King Circle of Life sing-along ?
There was not specifically, there was, and part of the entertainment our last night, they did incorporate some of the Lion King songs into the entertainment that was performed by the Kapama staff, which they were doing, their music from South Africa, and then they did incorporate a little bit of the Lion King music into that.
What a missed opportunity not to just string a sheet up between two trees and project the Lion King in South Africa. I mean, if they can, what was it they watched? Mission Impossible on the top of Pulpit Rock in Norway.
Rock. Yes,
come on, amazing.
June, I got to ask you, just highlight from Zimbabwe, because I know you guys did that on your own, after your ABD. Instead of going back to Johannesburg, you went straight over to Victoria Falls. Yeah, tell us, highlight from that. And was it difficult to, was it jarring to go from I'm in the perfect white gloved hands of the ABD, and now I'm doing something on my own?
We did feel a little spoiled. Like, it wasn't quite the same level of luxury as we were accustomed to. But it was a great 3 days there. So we went to see Victoria Falls, and obviously that's one of the seven wonders. It was amazing to see. But some other highlights, we did a game drive there in a Jeep, and we saw the black rhinos. So South Africa has white rhinos, but Zimbabwe has the black rhinos, which are smaller and even more endangered. So we were able to see that. We did what I thought was really fun. It was my daughter's idea, but she was like a little intimidated when we got into it. We went horseback riding on a game preserve. And so we saw animals, including giraffe, like we saw a zebra and warthogs, but they ran away so quickly. Actually ran away much faster from us on horseback than in the Jeeps. But the giraffe, and I haven't posted this yet, this reel is coming, but the giraffes let us get close and stay close to them. But it was like English saddle, and you had to like know how to control your horse and stuff. So it was kind of the real deal. And we were with an anti-poaching team. So it was people who work for the reserve as anti-poaching to protect the animals. So that was really cool. And we did a Sunset River cruise on the Zambezi River, which is the river that leads up to Victoria Falls, and that was beautiful.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, I got to ask one more logistical question. Any sickness on the trip? Any stomach issues? Your different water, different food. There are people who, you're also on specific medications, particularly the malaria meds. Any of those issues that just people should be aware of. I know you mentioned you got to talk to one of these like travel nurse people ahead of time, which by the way is on your own dime. You might spend hundreds of dollars on on vaccines and advice about traveling to Africa. So that's something to be aware of. That's not part of sort of your tour. That's something you're going to have to do on your own in your local community. But yeah, any of those kinds of things.
So one thing to ask your travel doctor for is an antibiotic to carry with you in case that happens. And ours, recommended it and gave it to us. We had that. There was zero food problems, and I am very cautious. I lived in India for a year and I had deli belly, and I came home from a Disney cruise with C. diff. So I have had some horrible experiences, and I'm very careful, but we were served fruits and vegetables, and everybody was eating them everywhere we went. I think everywhere that Disney took us, they said it was safe. I was still kind of probably overly cautious with the raw fruits and vegetables just because of my history. But I had sushi and Knysna and raw oysters in Knysna. Before I ate the raw oysters, I asked the guides if this was a good idea. They tasted fresh and were great, and I was fine. So everywhere that Disney had us, everything was very safe. The bottled water was plentiful. All the resorts, provided bottled water, and Disney had tons of bottled water on the bus. You could have as much water as you wanted everywhere. They told us we didn't have to worry about brushing our teeth with the bottled water. It was fine for that. And I didn't. I thought I might brush my teeth with bottled water, but I didn't. I used the tap water to brush my teeth, and everything turned out fine.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, good to know. We've got to ask you what's next, because you have some great trips planned. I know one is to Asia, another one. I won't spoil. I'll let you spoil.
I want to know when you're headed to Antarctica at this point.
Yeah. Well, you got to take us with it.
I want to do Nat Geo. We looked at doing Antarctica December 2027, but the holidays fall oddly that year, and my daughter's college break doesn't line up with the date. So we're still working on that, but we want to get to Antarctica. We must get there at some point. But we have 3 more trips on the books already. So this December, we are going to sail on the Adventure. We delayed that exactly 12 months, sailing out of Singapore on New Year's Eve, this coming New Year's instead of last. But on the way there, we're going to stop at Hong Kong Disneyland for 2 days because we have to change planes somewhere. So we might as well do it there. And then after we get off the boat, because we're just doing 1 4-night sailing. I know most people, I guess, or a lot of people I'm hearing doing the back-to-backs, and I can see why, but we're just doing the 1 4-night. And so we traveled that far. We figured we'd add something else on. So we're going to go to Krabi Island, Thailand, Krabi Island, Thailand for 5 nights before we come home.
Awesome.
And
I was going to say, please reach out about that adventure trip that you're doing.
Yeah, she's been on the show.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Brian.
Sam's already got it. All right.
We don't have her date booked, but she knows she's coming. And then tell us the other 2 trips you've got booked, because they're awesome
the
too.
next summer, a little bit lighter weight, but we're going to do the Norwegian Fjords cruise. So we haven't done that yet. So that'll be a little bit of a break for me financially too, from some of these bigger ones, which I'm grateful for. And then as our bounce back from this ABD, we were inspired to book our next ABD, which will be December 2027 Egypt ABD.
Yeah, fantastic.
So back to the continent of Africa.
You are travel goals. Let me just say that I am jealous of your travel prowess, because you go to all of these really amazing places. But we're so thankful that you came on the show again. Again, for those who want to follow along on June's journeys, the vacation mouse, _vacation mouse.
And I will make sure to add that to both the YouTube description and the show notes for this show when they go out on our podcast channel.
But she's got a great blog and a great Instagram. So go to both, because you can see videos and pictures on her Instagram, but you can see blogs and more videos and pictures on the blog as well. So June, thank you so much for joining us. It
was a pleasure.
Fabulous.
And for everyone out there, we will be back next week. Monday night at our regular time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and we will be joined by none other than Wesley Davenport. You may know him online as, version 5571?
You got it.
Yeah, he's the version tracker for various theme parks. At least that's how his account started, but now he's hooked on Disney Cruise Line. So he's going to come join us and talk about Alaska. He's
Alaska. Actually on the Disney Wonder, I believe, right now, or he just got off maybe yesterday. But anyway, he literally just this past week. So he'll be on next week. We'll be on at our same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So join us live next week. And with that, we'll just say thank you to everybody for watching and listening, and we will see you real soon.
Well, thanks to everyone out there for listening this week. We really, really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can keep getting great content from us every week. In fact, twice a week we publish shows. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to get all of those great episodes. And if you want to watch us live, we have a live show now every week, Monday nights, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, over on youtube.com/DCL Duo. So be sure to head over and check that out. If you want to help support the show, be sure to hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you leave us a written review, a 5-star written review, we will read it at the top of one of our main episodes. So please head over there and hit those 5 stars. Of course, you can also help support the show by supporting our fabulous show sponsor, My Path Unwinding Travel. If you want to book your next Disney vacation, head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo, or email them at dclduo@mypathunwinding.com so they know we sent you their way. If you've got questions or you'd like to connect with us, the best way to do that is to head over to dclduo.com. It's got links to all of our things, full catalog of the podcast episodes, including a searchable catalog for the podcast, links off to our vlog, a link to our Etsy store where we sell some fun fan-inspired magnets, link to our Patreon if you'd like to help directly support the show each and every month. Just head over to the website or patreon.com/DCLDuo. Also has a way for you to sign up for our Substack newsletter that we're hoping to start really pumping out monthly here at least, and a few blog articles that we've written. So DCLDuo.com is the best way to connect with us. You can also, of course, email us at info@DCLDuo.com or reach out to us on our voicemail line at 402-413-5590. That's 402-413-5590. The DCL Duo podcast is not affiliated with Disney Cruise Line, the Disney Company, or the Disney family of theme parks. The views expressed on the show are solely those of the individuals on the podcast and in no way reflect the views of the Disney Company or Disney Cruise Line. If you have questions about a Disney cruise or a Disney vacation, please contact the great folks over at My Path Unwinding Travel or Disney directly, or your own travel agent. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another fabulous adventure with the DCL Duo. Good night.